Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are listening from. Welcome to episode 8 of Discover Together, the incoming podcast. I realize that we left off quite abruptly and on a cliffhanger in the previous episode, so we are just, without much ado, going to pick up from there. So that promise that God made to David that he will establish him a throne that will last forever. There's a reason that promise is important, and we are going to see it now. So, to recap a bit, Israel asked for a king. God first gave them Saul. Saul blew it. David became king. And then David became the first in a line of kings. So, initially, he was king over just Judah for 7 years. Then he became king of Israel and Judah. Obviously, he's from the tribe of Judah. In case you were wondering why, I don't know how much to give away now. Anyway, that's fine. Anyway, that's why Jesus is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the root and offspring of David. You know, the roots of David, because he preceded David, and then he's the offspring of David because he came from the line of David. You know? Anyway, but I digress. So, after David, Solomon took over. Solomon was another chap who started off fantastically well. You know, he went on to be king, to succeed his father as king. He asked for wisdom and all of that good stuff. But towards the end of his life, you know, he missed it in terms of the fact that he multiplied wives to himself against the instruction of God, multiplied gold and silver to himself against the instruction of God, and he was levying very massive taxes on his people. So when he died, because of, you know, how he lived his life, particularly towards the end, God said, you know what, he's going to rip off the kingdom from Solomon. But, and here we go, because of the promise he made to David, he was not going to rip it off completely from him. Let's go to 1 Kings 11. Just looking for where to start so we get a bit of context. I'll quickly, I'll start from 6. It's a long read, but I think it's reasonably important. Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord and did not fully follow the Lord as did his father David. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the people of Ammon. And he did likewise for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. So the Lord became angry with Solomon, because his heart had turned from the Lord God of Israel, who appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he did not keep what the Lord had commanded. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, because you have done this, and have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you, and give it to your servant. Nevertheless, I will not do it in your days, for the sake of your father David. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away the whole kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son, for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. So because of the promise that God gave to David that he will not lack a man to sit on his throne, and that the kingdom his kingdom will be established forever, God tampered justice with mercy when he was dealing with Solomon. And how was it fulfilled? How was he ripped out? There was, when Solomon had died, there was an old there was a man called Jeroboam. I think he fled into Egypt at some point. So he came back, and Solomon's son's name was Rehoboam, as if to further conflict issues. Rehoboam, Solomon's son, Jeroboam, Solomon's adversary, so to speak. So after the death of Solomon, the people gathered to Rehoboam, Solomon's son, and said, look, your father, he heaped so much taxes on us. This burden is too much for us to bear. Will you lighten it a bit? And Rehoboam said, okay, you know what? Go and come back in 3 days. Let me consult. So he consulted with the elders. The elders told him, say, if you deal reasonably with these people, you speak good words to them, they will be with your servant, they will be your servants forever. He said, okay, no problem. Then he consulted with the young men, and the young men said, what? Why will you let the people tell you what to do? Tell them that they've not seen anything yet. That Solomon, so that Solomon chastised them with whips, you will chastise them with scorpions, and that your little finger will be as thick as your father's loins. It is very interesting because those loins, saw 1,000 women. So if you say your finger will be as thick as your father's loins, as his father's loins, that was no joking matter. So immediately the people heard it. They said, what? We can't do this anymore. And the kingdom was split. That's when somebody said, look, to your tents, O Israel, what inheritance do we have in David anymore if his children are going to keep treating us like this? So the kingdom split. Judah, which is David's tribe, remained under the rule of Rehoboam, Solomon's son. But the rest of Israel, 11 tribes of Israel, I think it was 10, because Judah and Benjamin at some point became one tribe. But anyway, I digress. But the rest of the tribes followed after Jeroboam. So that's why if you are reading the book of Kings, you will see, in the X year of this king of Israel, this person reigned over Judah. And in the X year of this king of Judah, this person reigned over Israel. That's because the kingdom was split into two. As God said, the only reason it was not completely ripped from David's lineage is because of God's promise to David. So Jeroboam, however, did something very terrible. And what did Jeroboam do? Jeroboam now, not Rehoboam, Jeroboam. And Jeroboam thought to himself, he said, look, these people still love David, and they are going to be loyal to David. So I don't want them to kill me one day and become loyal to David. So what did he do? He has now set up idols. He set up a religion that cloned the religion or the practices that God gave to Israel. So what was the point? Because the places of worship were in Jerusalem. And he was thinking, look, the more these people go to Jerusalem, the more they will sympathize with David. And then they are going to cut me and my family off. So he set up like false religion in Israel. He made the lowest of the low, the scum of the earth, he made them priests of that religion. And he told Israel, say, oh, Israel, these are your gods that brought you out of Egypt. It's too far for you to go to Jerusalem. Worship here instead. And that thing that Jeroboam did became an institution. Every king of Israel, almost without exception, in fact, off the top of my head, I can't think of Israel having any good king. All the kings of Israel adopted that policy. So what Jeroboam did became the new normal, basically. And Israel was now known for having idolatrous kings. Judah, however, was a mixed bag. Some of their kings would be good, some of their kings would be terrible. So they had good kings and bad kings in Judah. But Israel, almost without exception, again, I'm open to be fact checked here, but I think to the best of my knowledge, Israel did not have any good king. All the good kings came from Judah, David's line. So, First Chronicles and Second Chronicles zooms in to the kings of Judah, because it's actually called the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. That's what Chronicles is short for. So, the book of Chronicles only tells us about the kings of Judah, not the kings of Israel. So again, just a reminder of where we are coming from. So we started with Genesis, whole of mankind, zoomed into Abraham, zoomed into Israel, zoomed into David, zoomed into Judah. And what does all of this have in common? It's Christ. Christ is a man. Christ is of the seed of Abraham. Christ is a Jew. Christ is of the tribe of Judah. Christ is a son of David. So, Ezra and Nehemiah. Now, how the book of Kings, the books of Kings and Chronicles ends is Israel going into captivity, because the promise God made with them is, look, if you obey my laws, I will bless you, I'll protect you. But if you do not obey my laws, and you can see the curses in Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28:1 starts with, oh, if you hearken unto the Lord your God and diligently obey his voice, this blessing shall come upon you and overtake you. But blessings are only like verses 1 to 14 of that chapter, if I remember well. From verse 16 to verse 67 or 68 or something, they are all curses. Terrible curses. Say, and the Lord thy God will make your plagues wonderful, even great plagues, and upon your seed, and of long continuance. This is, King James has a way of making everything, the King James Bible has a way of making everything more dramatic. I believe that's 28:59 of Deuteronomy in the King James Bible. So God promised them that the day they turn away from him, when they turn away from him, they will go into captivity. And that's what happened. That's how kings ended. Israel went into captivity. Second Chronicles ended. Judah went into captivity, and everything was destroyed. The city was destroyed. The temples were destroyed, because God warned when they were building that temple. God told Solomon, he said, look, this temple that you are seeing that is so fantastic and beautiful in your eyes, the day you turn against me, I'm going to make it a byword. That somebody will walk past, say, my goodness, what happened here? And you say, well, Israel turned away from the Lord their God, and their God sent people to destroy this temple. So that's where Second Kings and Second Chronicles ends. The destruction of Israel and they being in captivity, the destruction of the temple. So Ezra and Nehemiah were the rebuilders. Now, in all of this, the Israelite race did not go extinct. God always promised a remnant. Why was that remnant important? Because Christ had to come from Israel. So it was very important that the Jews remained a race. So Ezra had in his heart to rebuild the temple. Nehemiah had in his heart to rebuild Judah, the city of Judah. Remember, Christ from the tribe of Judah. Christ, a Jew. I think we would stop here for this episode, and then we will pick it up next week, because I want to start from Esther. Esther looks like a neat place to begin, and I think next week will be the final installment of this mini series, so to speak, because the prophets are relatively easier to go through because they are all on that one thing anyway. Too much spoilers. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next episode.